Welcome to tonight's December 5th, 2014 United Front Radio. We are right now in the midst of national Ferguson riots, and Reverend Edward Pinkney is facing a life sentence for nothing more than a recall petition. His sentencing is in 10 days on December 15th. Tonight, we can't ignore the long pervasive issues of institutionalized racism, especially in our own police departments and judicial systems. With the help of Reverend Edward Pinkney, we are also leading and moving economic demands into the Ferguson debate. When I think of race relations and the idea of white privilege, I always think of the Chris Rock joke where he says, "No white person wants to trade places with me, and I'm rich." The Reverend was talking about the movie Trading Places. What was the point it brought out about racism in America?
Well, what it did, it shows that it goes back to economics now. You know, you can be, if you're rich and you become poor, then you act like poor people. If you're poor, you might steal to survive, steal to eat. So what they did, they took Eddie Murphy, who was a beggar, and he used his board to get around town begging for money. So he went into this club. They accused him of stealing, and during the process, the two rich guys who were brothers made a wager that they could turn this young man. Well, I can't think of his name right off the top. What was his name?
Kyle.
Is Valentine?
No, not. I'm talking about the comedian.
Dan Aykroyd was the other guy.
Dan Aykroyd. And they told him, and he was well-educated, well-to-do guy. He was getting ready to get married, had it really, really going on. And what they did, they took a wallet and put it inside Dan Aykroyd's coat and called the police, and they found, and to set him up, to put him in a compromising position. They cut off all his wealth, his credit cards, even separated him from his girlfriend, set him up with a prostitute who really had nothing to do with him, but she said that was her man rather than from his girlfriend. His girlfriend well off also. But what it did, it basically shows you could take a rich person and put him in a poor environment, and he began to act like the poor people. It's just a matter of time. And then you can take that same poor guy, put him in a rich environment, and he'll act the same way as the rich folks act. So I thought it was actually a great movie. It told a story how money changes you, but without money, you'd be no better than the poor people on the streets.
And then at the end, they set up the two rich brothers who were trying to do like an insider futures trade. They were Wall Street futures traders. So they basically, Eddie Murphy and Dan Aykroyd team up to corner the future market on frozen orange juice or something.
Yeah.
So they get rich off of that, and then the rich guys lose everything, and then they end up in the gutter. Just like Eddie Murphy at the beginning. Yeah.
Well, let's talk tonight about some uncomfortable areas, since we're all friends, that people don't want to go into. Because Reverend was saying that people don't want to talk about race. And we haven't talked enough about class, and we haven't talked enough about racism. But like through this whole process, Reverend, we've said, I can infiltrate places that some of the other people in our organization can't infiltrate. When I was talking about trying to get to the Uptons and things like that, why is it that I can do it and certain other people can't? I don't have money.
See, you're poor and you're white. That makes it that gives you a privilege that most black people would never have. You see, some of the good examples I can give you. Let's say, for instance, you driving down the street. If you was driving and I was on the passenger side, let's say the light pulls up behind you, he would treat you 100% different than if I was driving and you was on the passenger side. You see, and that really is a major issue. When you see a cop come to your house or something like that, he always have his hand on his pistol. There's usually 2 or 3 of them. Even for something as minor that they come, like for instance, when they came to my home to arrest me for this recall petition, they had 35 to 40 law enforcement officers for a recall petition, which is nonviolent, but yet and still. They felt comfortable bringing that many people to my home and to our community. You see, they would never do that to a white person. Never. Not over a recall petition.
They wouldn't do it in a middle-class community. Do you think they'd bring a SWAT team in a poor
I don't think they would bring it to a white community. I don't believe they would. just not for a recall petition.
Okay.
If this guy is not dangerous, known to carry a weapon, and they knew one thing about me, if they could have called me on the phone, I would have came in, which I turned myself in anyway. So they knew that much about me. But it was designed to intimidate me more than anything else. And I said no to it. I said I wasn't having it. And here's another thing, too. I also believe they knew I was not at home. Because I can't believe for a second that they would bring that much firepower if I was at home or something like that. They had to know I was not here, unless they came for another reason. That's the only thing I could think of. When you talk about it, it amazes certain people. You go into a store, you get followed around by security. You could be still in the whole store, but they won't follow you around, but they'll follow a black person around. Mm-hmm. Let's say if you use your credit card, they want to see your ID, they want to see your mama ID, your daddy ID, they want to know all the information they can get, unless you go to a place that know you personally. You know, you can't go somewhere and the people do not know you. They want to see everything that you got. Amazing when you sit down and think about it. Even let's go to the police station and want to make a police report. Depends on who you making a police report on. Let me tell you, I'll give you a perfect example. The clerk at Barron County Courthouse had committed a crime. What she did, she gave the recall petitions to the sheriff department without a warrant or subpoena or judge order, which is against the law. So I go to the state police. I want to file a complaint. First, she give me a runaround for about an hour. Then an hour, another half an hour, maybe another hour passed. She said, well, just sit here and wait, and we'll take care. I said, what seemed to be the problem? I just want to fill out a complaint. You can just give me the paper, and I can tell you what happened. And then if you choose to investigate, but at least allow me to make the complaint. Well, I'm waiting for a call from Lansing, which is the capital. I said, why would you have to wait for a call from Lansing for me to make out a criminal complaint? Is he going to invest? You don't have to investigate if you don't want to. But the point is, I do want to make it out. I'll sit there maybe another hour, probably there for a total of 3 hours. She kept, I just said, well, okay, I'll do something else. So I filed a complaint against her. And Lansing never heard back from him. Okay, let a white person go over there. Mm-hmm. You see, her job would be on the line. You see, Those are just personal examples that I have encountered, and especially down here. Here's another example. You go to the prosecutor office with a complaint. They won't even take a complaint really from a black person. Okay, you want to make a complaint against the police department. You can't make a complaint here in Benton Harbor against the police department. They got this buddy system where they keep everything together and won't allow you to make complaints. So a lot of times people get frustrated and just don't do it, you see.
Right.
Okay, sometimes they'll tell you, well, go to Lansing. Well, who want to go to Lansing, which is 2 hours away? Nobody would. They wouldn't tell you to go to Lansing, but they'll tell a black person to go to Lansing. And then even if you go to Lansing, you got almost a 90% chance of them not even investigating the issue. So that's how it is when you think about being a black person.
Spent a lot of time working on stop and frisk a couple months back with Randy Credico, and I can't remember the exact statistics, but they were off the charts. It was like 90% of black men in the New York metropolitan area had gotten at least stopped and frisked one time, and it was something like 5 or 10% of white people, and then it was something like 10% of the black people they stopped had drugs or weapons on them, and 90% of the white people they stopped had drugs or weapons.
Amazing. Let me tell you that. I was in New York for 3 days. Look, I was in New York for 3 days. I was stopped one time.
Nuh-uh.
Yes. And the guy pulled us over. I wasn't driving, but he pulled the guy over, checked his license, checked him out, and wanted to know who I was. And
was this during the Left Forum?
No. Yeah, not this time, but the last year Left Forum. Because I wasn't at the Left Forum this year.
Okay, 2013.
Yeah.
No, Reverend Pinckney, I think a lot of white people will hear terms like white privilege, white supremacy, things like that, and it just doesn't ring a bell for us because
I agree.
in the white world, I look around and I say, well, where's white supremacy getting me? I'm having a hard time paying my bills and stuff, but it's not on the same level because, like you're saying, I can go somewhere. I'm not treated with suspicion. I'm not treated like a criminal. I'm not denied due process of the law if I run into a problem. But on the economic level, I think maybe there's some kind of a disconnect where black people have been kicked around for so long. It seems clear from your case that the legal and judicial and law enforcement establishments in Berrien County work as a conspiracy almost. Like you said, it's an old boys club, or it's those people are looking out for each other. But Absolutely. Just the average white person going to a 9-to-5 job doesn't see how that kind of stuff operates, and so we're kind of oblivious to the problem. Just sort of concentrate on our own things,
I'm conscious of white privilege on a day-to-day basis, Kyle, because I'm going in and out of places, that most people don't go in and out of, like government buildings and lobbying Congress, in and out of capitals. Nobody bats an eyelash. I'll walk right to a congressman's office and nobody even looks up. I'll start putting flyers in the mailbox. And I'll just say, I'm sorry, I was told to put flyers in here if I fudge it a little. And she said, oh, no problem. I have no problem with that.
And that's how you do. You utilize, like even within my organization, we probably have just as many white people as we do black people. And what's making it so important, when we talk about the way I break it down, I don't have black against white. I make it a class issue. Rich against poor. Haves against the have-nots. That's put almost 90% of the people in the same class that you are in, you see. And that way you become bigger and stronger. You cannot win this battle when you put racism into the pot. What you're doing, you start separating people, you see. And the way to not separate people is use the term class, or we can say class warfare. And we have to say these things because it's important. We have to figure out a way how to eliminate all this division. Black, white, Mexican, Puerto Rican, Japanese, Chinese. We have to put all these people together in order to fight this system. We don't have the resources to go chest to chest, eyeball to eyeball with these people. But the weapon I like to use is more of us than them. I think that message is loud and clear. It shows you can win if you stick together. We might have a difference, you see, but that don't mean that we can't fight for the same cause. And once we get that through our head, and like you talk about make it economics, but you also got to talk about racism, and don't be offended when people talk about racism. A lot of time when you talk about racism, white people try to separate themselves from that term because they don't want to get into it. Mm-hmm. You see, you have to get into it, not only to please yourself, but to really get knowledge exactly of how a black person feels. You see, what you have to do, you have to be around them and understand them. You see, what we do more than anything else, we try to improve within ourselves with the smallest amount of resources that you can ever imagine. You see, if you knew what I lived off of, you see, you would say nobody could live off that amount of money. I don't go out and I drive a 1998 Mercury Mystique. We don't go out and spend a lot of money on clothing and different things like that. We buy things that are necessary. That's how I'm able to keep this fight up and won't allow them to try to bribe me. See, the only reason they're attacking me now is because they know I can't be bought and I will not be sold. And that makes a difference. You see, most black people that go for the preachers and all these other people, they have a price tag on their hats. If you want them in your corner, all you have to do is read the price tag. Like buying a suit off a rack is right there. But I will not accept it because all these years of fighting would mean that I've been a fraud. You see, and to me, there's nothing more important to stand up for what's right. It doesn't make a difference to me who a person is. You see, like most people say, well, I don't care whether a person is black. I don't care whether he's white. I don't care whether he's Mexican. I don't care whether he's Chinese. I don't care whether he's Japanese. It don't make a difference to me. We got one problem, and we got these corporations that is destroying the rest of us. You know, we talk about the economic system here. An economic system that does not feed, clothe, and house the people must be and will be overturned and replaced with a system that meets the needs of the people. My job is to try to figure out what we can do to meet the needs of the people. That way we keep growing. We cannot grow if we start setting up division. Very seldom will you hear me talk about racism. Very seldom.
You are not moved by money, you're moved by justice. Kyle and I feel the same way. We talk often about how we can't believe people are actually moved by money. It doesn't make sense to us. I remember Chuck Berry had a good line, and he said he didn't recognize how much racism there was in his circle of friends because they were all musicians. And he said, we were moved by music, so we were all just playing music. And you're moved by justice. What's astonishing to Kyle and I is how many people can be moved by money. It doesn't make sense to our brains.
Let me ask you this, Reverend Pinckney. I was doing some reading today about in the 1920s there was this conflict between people like Marcus Garvey and W.E.B. Du Bois and some other people about how do you create that economic basis for justice where you know, Garvey would have said, well, we need self-determination, you know, we need community wealth building, and Du Bois would have been much more of like an integrationist, I guess. And, you know, I think as you look around in the internet media and even in the popular media, especially with everything that's going on in Ferguson, you're getting some people talking about revolution. We need to just overthrow the whole system, or we need to just focus on only our communities. I think this message of everyone fighting together on you know, a common basis is starting to get drowned out by these disunion voices, if you know what I mean.
Oh, absolutely. And Marcus Garvey, his idea was more separation. I don't believe in separation because I think what it does is weakening you. It weakens your whole program. We have to learn to build around everybody. You cannot build a movement with, let's say, with just black people. It's not going to work. You're not going to be able to build a movement with just Mexicans. And you have to combine all these people together, because now it's entirely different than when Garvey was around. His idea was he really wanted to go back to Africa. That was one of the things he wanted to do. Matter of fact, he had bought a ship to take people back, and he all kind of crap like that. But what we have to do is think about how are we going to, you talk about revolution. Here's how I feel in reference to that. I feel nobody is going to give you freedom. Nobody is going to give you justice. Nobody is going to give you equality unless you're able to take it. If you can't take it, you won't get it. Now, I'm in power. Why would I give up some of my power if I'm wicked and evil anyway? It's just like the court system. Why would you go to them to get justice and you know they're wicked and evil? The only way you can get it, if they're afraid that you're going to be able to take it, you see. And remember this country was built on violence. I don't think there'd been a period of time they had more than 10 years when there wasn't war. They're prepared for a revolution here. Every single city in this country now have military equipment. They have tanks, grenade launchers. They got that thing that they were shooting fire in Vietnam and killing folks. What would a police department need with equipment like that? It just doesn't make sense. Their job is to serve and protect. Serve the people. You work for the people. No, they work for the corporation.
Well, our quote at the Tax Wall Street Party, the number one quote we go by is a Frederick Douglass quote that says, power concedes nothing without a demand.
That's one of my favorites.
What scares me, I've been listening to a couple black talk shows where they're talking about violent revolution, and so are some white alternative media talk shows. And what seems to be lacking across the board is a program. Meaning, like at the Tax Wall Street Party, we have outlined a program that, if it was implemented, would end the economic depression in a day, create some economic equality. What I wonder is, we have two different problems happening. We have economic inequality. We also have racism. And I wonder how much of what we think is racism might be alleviated. It's not going to be all of it, but it's going to be a percentage if there was economic equality. I mean, was there a time you remember in your life when Black people had a better quality of life or a better standard of living than they do now?
Absolutely. I remember right after the 60s, the 70s, right in the 70s, when Black-owned businesses, like in Chicago on the west side, and most of them on the south side, and some of them on the north side, are owned by Black people. On gas stations, grocery stores, mama papa stores, different things like that. Now, look, I'm going to tell you this real fast. I went to the bank to get a $15,000 loan. I got a house, which I probably owe about maybe $5,000-$10,000 at the most. A1 credit. They gave me the hardest time to get a little mangy little $15,000 loan. At my bank, where I keep my money, and at the time before this campaign, I had money. Not a lot, but, enough to keep me going. And they turned me down. I could not believe it, because even the guy, he's my friend, the guy that works in the loan department, he's my friend. And I'm willing to put up my house as collateral.
Now, how are you supposed to start a gas station or a restaurant or anything? You can't even get $15,000.
Was there a time, I remember looking back and seeing Black men standing next to white men in suits and hats.
Right.
Because I don't know, was it ever better? Like, were you working at the same factories as white people, making the same union wages in Benton?
Well, I never worked in a factory.
But the Black community in Benton Harbor, what employed the Black community before they all started leaving? Was that Whirlpool?
They had in Benton Harbor, they had factories here.
Mm-hmm.
They had so many factories here where you can quit one job at 9 o'clock in the morning and start work again at 11 o'clock. And then you can quit that job and be working again by 2 o'clock. Then you can quit that job by 4 o'clock, be working again. That's how many jobs they had here. This was the fruit. Here's what they did here. And they went down south. They was out picking cotton, these men. They loaded them all on the bus. This was probably in the 50s. And brought them straight to Benton Harbor without even telling their wives. And put them in the factory to work. They was no longer picking cotton, but now they was working inside the factory. And that's what they did here. Maybe it took them a year, maybe 2 years to send for their wives and children. So the children had to fend for themselves, all while the man of the house was up here working. Most of them sent them some money back home to help. That's how it started here in Benton Harbor. That's how Black people got to Benton Harbor.
Did they eventually get a union wage where the fathers could support a whole family there?
Yes, they did. At that time, any amount was more than working in the cotton fields. And when they put these guys on the bus, they didn't know where they was going. They couldn't say no. They was forced up here into the city of Benton Harbor, Michigan. And some of the older guys, most of them have died. I know one or two still left.
Illustrates what a short time of history we've actually had a middle class. From being taken out of the cotton fields to the decline of the middle class now.
Yes.
I didn't mean to interrupt the story about the guys.
But they don't want to talk about it because they're too embarrassed to even talk about it. How, as you get older and get better, you think about what happened to you, how they made you leave your family to come up here and work. I just felt like, wow, that's an amazing story. I never, if I was living in Chicago, I would have never met people like this. These people, the story they told me was so incredible. Came here, they packed them all, maybe 100, 150 of them in a two-room place. And they lived like this for more than 2 years. It's incredible when you think about it.
It just seems like that corporate America just brings in the lowest wage labor that they're able to get. You know, in the 20s, it would have been my ancestors coming from places like Czechoslovakia. They're brought in to bust up the Irish Union. And then they unionize, and then they bring up, you know, sharecroppers from the South to bust them. And now they're bringing in Mexicans to bust the black workers, and, you know. And
now people in China are living just like everyone was explaining, with 100 of them in 2 rooms.
And now it's not good enough in China. They got the TPP. They're going to have people in Bangladesh and Pakistan. It's just going to get lower and lower and lower until the lowest possible standard of living that they can get someone to make a washing machine or a dishwasher.
In the 40s and the 50s, General Motors and Ford Motor Company, they was hiring black people. My question to General Motors, Ford Motors, Chrysler, who gonna buy your product? Because you're able to produce cars now, but you have nobody to buy. That's why the government had to bail out General Motors. And then now they really going back to cheap labor. You know, you used to make maybe $30, $40 an hour at General Motors. Now it's almost down to $10 an hour. Mm-hmm. Who would believe that they go backwards? So when you talk about economics, we have to learn to put our money together and stand against this monster, these corporations, because they have merged with the government. And what we're fighting now is fascism. It's here, whether we like it or not. It's here. How do you let people, they you know what they're good at? Here's what they do. They can take days off and figure out how to neutralize us and still get paid. We can't take days off because we don't get paid unless we go to work. So the difference is they use the resources from the corporation and the government to fight against the people. And the bad part about it, we accept it. When you accept it, this is what you get. You see, like, let me give you a good example. Like, okay, let's say the Michael Brown killer. Do you realize that there are just as many white people out there than blacks? Blacks are really intimidated by the system. New York, Eric Garner. It's just as many white people out there as blacks. But here's the secret. If we could use that energy and educate the people, see, it's bigger than a Michael Brown. It's bigger than that. It's bigger than Eric Garner. It's bigger than that. Those are little battles. They're designed to break your concentration on really what is going on. You see, we sit around from August 9th until November 24th wondering, will they indict Darrell Wilson? All that time we wasted when we could have been building. You see, Eric Garner, December the 3rd, from August the 9th to December the 3rd, we're sitting around wondering, will they indict this officer when we should have been building? It's designed to break your concentration. See, these officers have one job. That is to protect the haves, not you.
That's so well said when you said it's designed to break your concentration. That speaks to me. I mean, what if Occupy, for example, had all gotten together and made one demand of Wall Street, the entire country, just concentrated on one demand, which was to tax Wall Street or to regulate it in some way? And what if we took all this energy and we started fighting together to nationalize the Federal Reserve, turn it back into a national bank that creates jobs at union wages to put people back to work rebuilding our infrastructure? Because we have one of the lowest rated infrastructures in the world. It's all crumbling. The waterways, the sewage systems, the roads, the bridges, everything. We could build modern infrastructure, fast rail. We could put everybody back to work, 30 million new jobs at union wages. What if we demanded that? What if we all came together and demanded that?
If the other 90% of the people in this country came together and worked together, we wouldn't have to worry about racism.
Yeah.
You see? So here's my take on it. People have to understand that it's not about you. It's not about a Reverend Payne. If I can do that, I care less about racism myself, because I know it's going to be there. And I know that most time these people there, all they is gatekeepers. Most races are gatekeepers. There's some good white people and there's some bad white people. There's some good black people and some bad black people. But most of the bad white people control most of the good white people. And that's why we have racism. If you go out here and just do what you're supposed to do, the point is treat everybody the same way. That's a challenge. But the system do not want that, because if you did, you wouldn't have division. You see, long as there are certain people, and we use the word privilege, white privilege, now that separates you from the black guy or the black woman. Mm-hmm. You see, instead of saying, well, hey, my name is Danielle. I don't go by white Danielle. I'm Danielle Walls. Yeah. That's who you are. I'm not white Danielle Walls. I'm Reverend Pinckney. I'm not black Reverend Pinckney. So we're connected. Mm-hmm. When you eliminate the white and eliminate the black. We don't have to be black nothing. We don't have to be white nothing. All we have to do is be human beings.
Well, what if we could snap our fingers, let's say, and jump ahead to the future? What if we could snap our fingers and there were 30 million jobs at $25, $35 an hour given to all the black unemployed people and all the white unemployed people? And there was hope again, and there was optimism and dignity for everybody. There's still institutionalized racism. I don't know in your lifetime.
Oh, yeah. And you know, you always going to have some, but it won't be as great. See, the more we talk, I think the better we are in a position to deal with reality of life, you see. And we can win. See, my message is simple. I don't care what nobody say about nothing. If we work together, we can win this. How do we improve everybody's living conditions? How do we do it? That's the question that has to be answered.
We were saying that half the people out on the street riding were white. I think that we all know, and all the white people I talk to, that there is a big problem. We've got the prison industrial complex where you have most of the people incarcerated are black. There's racism in the police department like nobody's ever seen. Things like stop and frisk. And then the justice system.
Because here's the thing. Okay, then when you're white, jail will not do you any good.
I don't understand.
If you black, jail is going to do you good, because we're going to keep you there for the rest of your life if we can. That's the mentality of what we're dealing with.
Where does that mentality come from? Is that...
Now we go back to the people in charge, racism, and sometimes you know when you get power, you think that you have an obligation to slam the door in a black person's face. Let me give you an example. This young man, Mario Allen, he went to prison for 45 years for some ecstasy pills. Who in this world will send a person to prison for ecstasy pills for 45 years? Here's the shame part of it. The people in this community were silent. They didn't say not one single mumbling word. So they telling the authorities that what you're doing is right. Let me give you another example.
White people don't get arrested for drug crimes.
No,
Black
they don't.
People do.
Black people, if you got a joint, I remember once there was a case where a young man, they had one joint in the whole car. There was 5 people in the car. They charged all 5 people with possession of marijuana with the attempt to deliver. One joint.
Oh, my God.
It could also be that prisons are private and for-profit, and they have to put away a certain quota of people, and it's easier to put away people who aren't them, who don't look like them.
Right. I court watch. That's what I do. I'm at the courthouse every day, helping these young men, making sure they understand what they need to do. Because it's crucial that most times you could be 50 years old and really don't know about the court system. It's amazed me when I got over there And they had the nerve to try to, the court-appointed attorney tried to get them to plead, all 5 of them to plead guilty. It wasn't even a joint that it was like a butt. And 5 people are going to plead guilty to 1 butt.
Every white stockbroker in Manhattan is doing cocaine in the open while we're speaking right now.
Right. And they know they're doing it. See, that's the difference. If they think you're doing it as a black person, they're going to find a way. And here's something that happened, too, in Benton Harbor. We had this officer, white officer. He was the police officer of the year for the whole state of Michigan. He had planted drugs on over 300 people. And here's the bad part. They knew he was doing it. One day, this guy was going to trial. I paraded about 20 guys that this guy had planted drugs on. We had them on the witness list. But when it got time for them to come in and testify, their very own attorney, the court-appointed attorney, refused to let them testify that this guy was planting drugs on people. See, it's designed to break you down. When you talk about Berrien County, when you talk about the jail system, when it comes to black people, they have a job where they have to physically remove and destroy black families. That's the history. And they use the criminal justice system. Every person that they can put in jail, every person that they can revoke their voting rights, every person that they can give a felony to, or they can cause them to lose their job or put them on probation. Every person that they can cause to not be able to pay the basic necessities through imposing these rigorous court causes. And I say this all the time. See, in the 60s, we used to say it was Negro removal, because that was the name for black people, Negroes. Like in Bosnia, it was called ethnic cleansing. Today it's called genocide. But we're not accepting it as genocide. We're allowing people to say, well, maybe they deserve that. You hear him saying anyway, if the authorities say that I got a pistol, knowing I never carried a pistol in my life, and they say I got a pistol, well, if they said he had a pistol, he had a pistol. Not so. See, but white people have to take a stand. Just like in my case, I have had white people that come up to me that lives in this area. They have never spoken to me before in my life. They said, this is a disgrace. How do we allow them to continue to do people like you and this community this way? I say, it's simple. It's real simple. If you stood up for me, they would try to figure out a way how to come after you. Because it's not enough people willing to take a stand like you. We have to learn to fight back and fight together. That's the only way we're going to win. We can't beat these people down. And I talk about there's never going to be a change without a conflict. Why would it? You got the gatekeepers who's living quite high on the hall. They don't want to lose that status they have. Like today, we had this commissioner. He was charged with $150,000 embezzlement. That it's really more than that. But by him being an elected official, they cut it down to $150,000 so it don't look so bad. I mean, he in the millions, I would imagine. But the point is, that's how they protect each other. If that was a black person, his bond would be set at $1 million to get out of there.
I don't do drugs, but I'd never be afraid of doing drugs because I know nothing would ever happen to me.
Yeah. And a lot of people, I remember before, these guys, I used to tell them all the time, I say, well, don't hang around with people who's doing drugs, because if you're not doing drugs and they are doing drugs and you're together, both of y'all going to jail for drugs. It sounds incredible. If you never used drugs in your life and you with somebody who's smoking a joint or snorting some coke or whatever it might be, you're going to jail with them. That's how they do black people. Don't let them come in your house. Everybody in the house go to jail.
Do you think the police departments are more racist now than they were when you were younger?
I think right now is worse now than ever before. because they're training them to kill. Before, they wasn't trained to kill. Now they're trained to kill. They're not trained to shoot you in the leg, in the arm. They're trained, their job is to shoot you straight in the chest or the head. That's where they shoot you at. They don't go for no arm. And before, they would, use the billy club. They would do, even the taser that came out. Now, they're training people right now to kill. Police officers. Now, they take, one of the things that happened in Ferguson that was so important was that they're claiming now that some of the people that was paid, some of the police officers or hired gun was setting fires. I don't know whether it's true or not. I wasn't there, but I can believe it because I know how they operate. You see, and to me, I thought it was ingenious. I said, wow, that's why they was all concentrating on this down here. They was setting fires down there. I said, wow, I said, them guys were really planning, I'm all excited. I said, wow, they not as stupid as I thought they was going to be, because I thought they were going to put them all in one area, like the 50th anniversary of Martin Luther King. They said it was 200,000 people there, right? They had them fenced in. If you want to be part of it, you go through the gate, you get inside with the 250 people, and they lock the gate. You don't get out. I said, that's the stupidest thing I ever heard in my life. Why would I want to be part of something like that? I said, what they doing, they can, I went to Chicago and they had this, they had in Grant Park, probably about 40,000 people there, and when it got, kind of rough for the cops, they started shooting this gas into the crowd. And and you could smell the gas, but you didn't know that they had shot the gas in the crowd. And I guess it's some kind of a formula they use to weaken you or whatever it is. Because once I smelled it, I said, no, I'm out of here. I'm in. And because I know that smell. I said, it's some kind of chemical they're shooting in the air. And sure enough, but everything is about crowd control, to control you. That's why I say, you have to learn, I admire the Vietnamese for the simple reason they didn't have the military equipment that the United States had, and they defeated the United States. Nobody want to talk about that, but they gave this country a whooping that they would never forget. Remember, they actually chased them out of Vietnam. They went out of there so fast that they don't even talk about the Vietnam War because they know that if they start talking about, you're going to bring up that they took another whooping. Mm-hmm. You don't need to have all this military stuff to win the war, to win the conflict. What you need to do, you got to be willing to make the sacrifice. And most people are not willing to make the sacrifice to make things better for the future. And it's, it's about our children. I don't know whether,
We always say that when we get to Washington and take power, it'll be with muddy boots.
Yeah, and that's the way it's going to be because, and remember this, we have to learn how to work together. Until we learn how to walk and work together, we're going to still just be spinning our wheels. Mm-hmm. And we can win this battle. See, the message tonight should be clear. We have to learn to work together. And if we work together, we will win this war. The economy, we talk about the economy. We are the economy. We're the ones spending the money. If we start spending our money, what happens? That's another war. Mm-hmm. And like I said, this is a class warfare. I'm not putting racism and all that. To me, that's a sidetrack.
Well, I think people get confused because they think work together how and for what. And I think we need to unite behind a platform that we know historically works. I mean, the platform we're using is not ours. The platform we're using is Abraham Lincoln's. Kyle's better on the history than I am, but it's John F. Kennedy's, it's Martin Luther King's. It's a program that, for FDR's. It's a program that has historically worked, and we took the best bits and tweaked it for today's economy.
Can I jump to a quick historical example? I've been reading about Henry Ford lately, and he's not he's a controversial guy because he's kind of a tyrant to his employees and all that. But he, back in that same period we were talking about, like Marcus Garvey, Henry Ford probably lifted up more black families than all civil rights leaders put together just by virtue of the size of the operation, meaning that he was the first guy to sort of put black men in advanced jobs in machining, in engineering, and all this kind of stuff. Now, how was he able to do that? It was because there was a protective tariff that came in the 20s behind, like, the Harding administration. So they said, all the industrialists like Ford got together, they said, we need protection from the Germans and the British and whatever. So they put a 35% tax on any kind of steel that was coming in, any kind of automobiles, and it gave them the leverage that they needed to create these jobs. I think when we talk about class war, I think that's true, but the problem that we have in America today is that the upper class is not even an industrialist class. It's financiers.
Right.
It's people that have no connection to reality, and ultimately they have no need. I think when you're looking at, like, you look at this Cornerstone Alliance, or you look at the Whirlpool Corporation. Mm-hmm. Whirlpool does not need black American workers. Absolutely. They've got Mexican workers.
Right. And they're showing that every day. It's the elimination period. They don't need, like I said, right here in Benton Harbor, there are 4,000 employees or more at Whirlpool Corporation. Less than a half a percentage are from Benton Harbor. Less than, which is too incredible to even think about. And you don't pay any taxes here at all. And you get free water. I have to pay my water bill, or else my water get cut off. We have to figure out a way how we can deal with these corporations.
In our platform, we have reinstate a protective trade tariff. That way it won't be profitable for a company like Whirlpool to ship the jobs overseas. And that's what we talked about in the other episode, that they ship them to Mexico and Germany and now a bunch of other places.
And who was the guy behind that, or one of the main guys behind that? Fred Upton.
Right,
absolutely. Since 1986, he's in there at the Energy and Commerce Committee, pushing through NAFTA, pushing through. We need to control the government to an extent that we force Whirlpool or any corporation to say, okay, if you want to make things in America, you've got to employ Americans. You've got to do things that are good for the community. You got to let these businesses function, but you can't let them function by their rules.
Absolutely.
Yeah, so if we go out the street and we're like, oh, Whirlpool's bad, that's not going to do anything. They don't care about us. No. Fun of them. No, we've got to actually force the government to put a trade tariff back in place so that it's not profitable for them to go anywhere else. They have to employ Americans.
Here's what Whirlpool did. We put a boycott on them in 2008. It was devastating. I don't even know how successful it was. But the point was, they had a negative credit rating, which made them now, anytime they borrow money, they had to pay almost twice the normal interest rate. Okay, but here's what now. This is how the halves work. Fred Upton is over the energy, right? So they passed a bill where he got $1 billion. No, should I say $1 billion? Anyway, it's $1 billion of tax like credit, but they use it as money. If you go out and buy a washer dryer or a stove and refrigerator, they give you $100 for buying. And each year it keeps adding up. Right now, Whirlpool have $500 million in their kitty. And that's the only reason today that they still in operation and there's not been a hostile takeover. They got $500 million.
Well, a company that big can wait these things out. I remember when my dad lost his job in the 80s and his union was busted. We stayed on strike for 3 years and the company waited out the strike until people crossed the picket line. They waited 3 years. They were able to wait, but the workers weren't able to. They were starving. No, they couldn't wait us out because they had enough money.
Absolutely, and that's what Whirlpool has today. They got this little kitty. The thing is, the people have to understand how important. See, we shouldn't attack all the corporations, but we should pick out 3-4 of them and neutralize them. And like Whirlpool themselves. I don't know. My thing, like, if you want to attack General Motors, call for a boycott. You got to say international. You can't say a regular boycott. That'll get you nowhere. Mm-hmm. But when you start talking global, international, it changes things 100% because it's obvious you know something to say the word global or international.
If you want to say one thing before you leave, just to say, and what you want from people out there in this we have 10 days left, 10 days, but that means the letters have to be to the judge well before the 10th. So if you're in another country, make them FedExed and send a copy to your address. All the information to do this is at freepinkney.wordpress.com. Is there anything you want to add to that? Letters to the judge is what we need.
Absolutely. We need letters to go to this judge. And we do want to talk about how do you convict a man with absolutely no evidence?
Right.
And also, which is important, you can put your own spin on it, how you want it done. But to me, that's important to me to let them know that it's not just Reverend Pinckney saying it, it's people all across the world. And those of you out there, let's start thinking positive. If you plan on coming on December the 15th, bring you a sign. We plan on having a big protest that day. We plan on doing other things also. But the number one thing is the court hearing. Number two things is the protest and get those letters out. Those of you, if you want to provide a donation, you can go to bhbanco.org. That's BHBANCO.org. That's BHBANCO.org. Or if you wish to mail a check or something, you can mail it to Banco, BANCO, 1940 Union Avenue, Benton Harbor, Michigan, 49022. That's Banco, 1940 Union Avenue, Benton Harbor, Michigan, 49022. Or you can call me at 269-925-0001.
Thank you, Reverend. Have a nice evening.
And you do the same as well. Very soon. Take care, Kyle.
Okay, bye-bye.
Bye-bye, you too.
This is what I would tell people now. You got to learn to fight back. You got to fight back before it happens. If you wait until it's happened, it's too late. You see, because they got the army and everything else if you decide to rise up and do something. So you have to have a way of doing it in a way that it might be some casualties in it. But the point is, you have to stand up and fight. So if you don't, it's going to be all over this country. We're looking at this whole country being under control of the rich, the have against the have-not. And people may not see it now, but it's coming. When I told them about Detroit, I used to tell them about Detroit. I said, they're coming for Detroit. I used to tell them, they used to say, well, we too big. They'll never touch us. Well, they got you now. So now, after Detroit, Chicago, the whole country. So get yourself ready for it. I know if most people say, oh, this could never happen. Same way Detroit said, it could never happen. It happened to them. Chicago is next on the list. The battle is the haves against the have-nots. The haves are so greedy, they're not satisfied with just being billionaires. Now, can you imagine he has more money than he's ever going to spend, but yet he wants more. And the best example I can give you is Sam Gilbert. They're not satisfied with just that. They want to be in control of the people. You talk about drones and other things like that. These are just testing. They got this thing out now that they're trying to control people's minds with the microwaves and stuff, different things like that. This is reality, but nobody believes it. People say, well, why would the governor try to control your mind with the microwave? So he can control everything you do. It's all about control. When you have so much money that you'll never run out of money, you have to find some other toy to play with. So they're playing with human beings. They're playing with your life, my life, our children's life, our children's life. That's what they're doing now. It's all about control. It's nothing about it's not personal. You know, it's not about being black. It's not about being white. It's all about control. That's what they're shooting for. If they can control you, they win the game. They can go home. Because that's what it's all about. You got so much money, you don't even know what to do with all the money you got. So now you want to control people. And that's what they do. And you always have to have a plan. Don't just go out there and start doing things. But it's better to do something than do nothing. But the point is, always have a plan. And if you got a plan, you can be successful. Because I always tell them it's more us than them. You see. And once we realize that, put that in our head, we can be ready.